So today I wanted to talk about stewardship and money, and something that is kind of personal to me. I went through a period of time where I was struggling with money. And for most of my life, I had never struggled. Now, that didn't mean that I was a good steward of my money. I wasted my money. I just kind of lived paycheck to paycheck. If I got money, I spent it. If I had a credit card, I probably spent on that too, and then built up credit card debt that I didn't need. And I did things that I probably shouldn't have with my money. And that became just this terrible cycle of waste. And then the bad stewardship put me in a situation where I started to feel increasingly like my situation was hopeless. So then I didn't feel like I really even cared, because you start to feel like, you know, if there's nothing I can really do about my situation, then I might as well just live for today. I might as well just enjoy myself today and go spend some money that I don't have on something to entertain myself right now, because I don't really have a future to look forward to. That's kind of how I felt at the time. Maybe I didn't think about it necessarily that way, but that's where I was at. And so I had this habit of just not really ever being a good steward of my resources, living day to day. And then there was a point where I hit rock bottom on that. And then I just didn't have any money. And I remember one day just being at work and realizing, you know, at that time I worked the night shift. So I'm at work, and then I realize I'm hungry and there isn't any way for me to have anything to eat. You know, like I can't even afford to get like a $1 burrito or something. There's not a single dollar to my name. There's not a single credit card that I could spend on. There's nothing. So, you know, that was kind of a rough situation. And then I went through a phase, a period of time where I didn't feel like there was going to be any path in the future that would allow me to be okay. I just kind of felt like, you know, this is the end. I'm done. I'm defaulted on all my debts. I can't afford to pay the rent for the house I'm living in. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to have a place to live necessarily, you know. Like, and it didn't get to that point to where like I was, you know, wasn't really, you know, at risk of homelessness, but I had to move out of a place and move into something cheaper and you know, call quits early on a lease. And, you know, it was just a bad deal. And I say this to say that, first of all, you know, you hit rock bottom, and then you realize in your life, okay, I actually am going to change now. What I'm going to do is going to be different. And there's a point where you understand that. And it's different from all the other times when you just said it, but you didn't mean it. You actually mean it. And it's for real. So it's not, oh, I'm going to do better with my money, and then 15 minutes down the road, it's, oh, look, there's something I can waste my money on. I'm going to spend money on that. You actually understand, you know, my life is depending on me doing something different moving forward. So there's that. And from that point on, life started to get better. And there were a lot of different things that happened, which aren't really something that I need to talk about in this video. But suffice to say that my behaviors changed. On a foundational level, I changed my behaviors. I was done being the person that I had been before. And then pennies started to count. And I didn't waste money anymore. I started to be really conscious about it. And then things got better. And that was now a few years ago. Not a terribly long time ago, but I would say about 3 years in my past. And things have been, in many ways, getting much better for me. And life's been good. Totally restructured my life, learned to have a low cost of living, learned to give up the trying to keep up with the Joneses, learned to get off the treadmill and focus on living a simple life that's within my means, all that stuff. And that leads me to the second point that I wanted to make here, and that is that there's the other side of the spectrum, and that is when you start to be okay, but there was a time when you weren't okay. And you don't exactly trust yourself because you don't want to fall into the old habits. And you also have this fear of going without, so you don't want to run the risk of losing progress. And now today I find I have a lot of anxiety about spending money. Even when I have the money to spend and it's not any problem at all, I have a sense of anxiety about kind of every dollar I spend. Because I remember that previous experience. And that's good. It's good because it's a guide, helps me to stay focused on doing the right things in the future. You know, you got to remember your past failures because those help you to be a better person in the future. But there's also a time for spending money. There's a time for taking the wealth you accumulate and using it for something. There's a time for giving back. And that's something that's just as important to remember, because if you spend your whole life trying to hoard credits, hoard dollars, hoard anything, you're afraid of other people taking up your time, you're afraid of spending money, whatever it might be, you can get to the point in life where you allow valuable things to pass you by and you're afraid to jump into those things because of the cost of entry. And I think it's important to remember that there are things in life that matter. Things in life that'll bring you joy, people in your life who you truly care about, and you've got to remember that while there is a time for being lean and conservative and cutting back, there's also a time for taking abundance and investing it in things that are consequential. And you don't want to be afraid of that. So on one hand, I always try to make sure I don't fall back into those old bad habits or lose ground. But I also find myself now reminding myself to be willing to spend money on things that I really want. Things that add value to my life, people that add value to my life, experiences that add value to my life. Now, that does not mean that I am back in the routine of living in a Starbucks drive-through line. It doesn't mean that I'm frivolously spending my money just because I can. Absolutely not. But, you know, if you have a chance to, you know, see somebody who you might not have a chance to see again, then yeah, maybe there's a time when you say, okay, you know, I'm gonna go take this opportunity, because you just don't know sometimes there's opportunities that come into your life, and if you don't act on them, you will always wonder, and you will always wish that you would have taken the chance and ventured out instead of staying in your comfort zone and just saying, you know, I'm going to play it safe yet again. So there's really just two sides to it. And I think that that's interesting because, you know, I learned the lesson on one side by going through that rough time. And then I also have come to realize that the other side of it is you also don't want to be so traumatized by previous losses that you're not willing to risk anything in the future. So try to find a balance there. And a rule of thumb I've come to realize is that the little things are what you got to worry about. The big things usually aren't. And by that, I mean, if there was something you really, really wanted to do, you really wanted to go on a trip, you wanted to go see a good friend of yours, you wanted to buy that special collectible thing that you've been looking at for ages, and you really would love to have it in your den or living room or something, like that big purchase, that big event, that one vacation you went on is probably not really going to be something that causes you trouble. What causes you trouble is the little nickel and dime things that just add up every single day. You know, it's the going to get a snack and an energy drink at break time and stopping at the gas station to buy snacks on the way to work and getting a cup of coffee here and all those little things. You know, all that little stuff. It just adds up. The $5 here, $5 there, stuff that doesn't really matter. People who you don't really value, and then they're taking up your time and they're taking up your money and things like that, and you just go along with it. Those are the things that wind up costing you. Like, even if it's just one friend that you don't really care too much about, you don't get anything out of this, but they always are going to, you know, hit you up and say, hey, you know, let's go do something. And the next thing you know, there's another $50 or $60 you spent at a restaurant or something. You do that just once or twice a month over the course of a year, you've spent, you know, easily $500 or $600 just on one person who's probably actually more of a acquaintance than a friend. But by the same measure, if you deliberately spend money on people who are extremely important to you, you're never going to look back and say, my goodness, you know, I wish I would have never done that, you know. And that's a really good thing to do. I think look in the future. Just imagine you're going to look back and you're going to say, do I regret what I'm doing right now? And there's some things where you'd say, no, I would never wish I could take this thing I purchased and give it back to the store. You know, like I've got collectibles that I've bought off eBay and stuff, and I think they're super cool. You know, they're amazing. They inspire me every time I see them, you know, and I like to have these things, you know, like video game collectibles, movie collectibles, other things I like to get, you know, and I would never look at those things after I got them and say, man, I just wish I could, you know, get rid of this and have my money back. But maybe those cups of coffee at Starbucks over the years, yeah, I'd definitely rather have my $10,000 or $20,000 that I probably sunk into Starbucks over the years. I'd rather have that back in cash, you know, make my coffee at home. So look and say, you know, in 10 or 20 or 30 years, you know, do you think that you're going to regret this, or do you think you're going to cherish it? And if the answer is I probably would cherish it, then in the moment right now, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money, because while not everything in life is worth sacrificing for, some things in life definitely are. So good luck in your journey. Till next time. Thank you for watching.